I could be better. How about you?
Yeah.
A bit resigned. I'd say the word is resigned. I was pretty resigned before. I left my girlfriend's place this morning. She said, "What's your prediction?" I said 4-0. So 4-2 makes that prediction look negative. But yeah, give us an
At
idea from
least
your kind of.
you didn't fully leave your girlfriend, so at least that's a positive, right?
I only left her for the day, or at least that's what she thinks.
Otherwise, I
Hope she's not
recommend
watching.
this stuff is will help you along on
Good
days like
decision.
this.
Where are
Yeah.
you? Where are you right now on the ANGE project after this past month, mate?
Yeah, so I think like I've been saying now that like we've been found out for a while, and and we won't win with ants, and the tactics not it's too formulaic, and it's by this point now it's too banal, to be honest. But I've still been ants in for the reason that there's no point in changing managers under this leadership. I think, but also because Ants is very important for the culture. He's calling out a lot of things that I think is very important, and like with the players and stuff. However, I am concerned now because now he's like a cornered animal, and he's putting too much on the players. And it's a little bit hypocritical because we all know that a lot of this comes from the institution that Tottenham is, and he should be putting just as much blame on the structure of the whole organization. Of course, the board famously, but also the staff. And we know, for example, our medical staff hasn't been up to the standards of other teams for a long time, and so on. And to be honest, I think we have a good squad. We have a good, we actually have pretty good quality. I don't think I think we got the base players, we got the squad players, maybe apart from Sonny, and we need to get real seniority in there and real, top level talent in there. But what we're seeing from the players is simply the system is completely found out, and they know it. They're playing it. They know it. They see it. We're playing way too narrow in the first place, and we're playing with wide open wings constantly, and we're playing against some of the fastest and most dangerous wingers in the world. And the players, of course, they understand it, so they lose belief and they don't go out there with heart. So I don't blame them in that regard. However, I do agree with there's a lot of players that need to be found out and shown the door, but I don't think that's going to happen to any different degree than we've been used to seeing. Levy, these are Levy's assets. So we won't see, for example, Madison is looking very toxic in my view, and he won't be shown any kind of a discipline or anything like that. On the contrary, Levy will try and do his best to get him back into the.
What do you mean by toxic, JORRI? What do you mean by toxic?
Just I'm of course watching on TV, but you see him, whispering in the ears of the players when he's on the bench, and you see him throwing his hands up every time it doesn't work out, which is usually him slipping or passing it badly or whatever. He's kind of pretending that somebody should have run to that spot where he gave it, whatever, like these kind of excuse type things. I don't think it's anything serious, but I think he's one of the guys that is kind of completely done with the whole thing, and to be honest, I think Sonny as well and stuff like that. And what we saw in the second half, for me, that was when we saw some fight in them. That was the players completely disregarding the system and reverting back to what has kind of been the default transition for Spurs, and especially how we attacked the box. It went from, instead of being very narrow or byline and cut back, it went from into the corners of the box where we you know, for many years have usually, like especially Sonny has always entered the box in that kind of way, cutting in at that point, you know, and that was much more dangerous, much more effective. And the players, I feel like they got more belief. I felt the players were playing for themselves. They felt it was too embarrassing.
It's interesting you say that, JORRI, because actually that's just made me think they also played some direct balls from back to front, didn't they? Which we don't see very much of. Maybe that's what you're talking about too, yeah?
Yeah, and I just think like, and that's also what we've been seeing with the set pieces and stuff like that. The players are desperate for guidance, for instructions, and they just don't have it. They're trying to play something that they think the manager wants to do, but it's not. He hasn't given them the answers, you know. So you know, even like I'll give Ans the benefit of the doubt. Let's just say half of the squad is toxic and or not what we need, you know, not of the character that we need. All right, fine, but you're still living in a world where you have to you know, utilize all your resources to the max, especially when you're playing for Tottenham, Levy's club, in the most difficult league in the world. You're not just going to get a blank like you're going to get in Scotland or Japan, a blank canvas to fill in athletes that are more athlete than the league in general, and that's how you're going to win it. That's not going to happen in the Premier League. You can do that basically probably in every league in the world except maybe 2 or 3 leagues, and least of all in the Premier League, you know. So you have to be super innovative as a manager in terms of tactics.
Yeah.
And you know, okay, we want to drill in the fundamentals of the system. I can accept that, but you still need to tweak and adjust and get results while you're going. Nobody is unhappy with the 5th place. I refuse to think that that's our gripe now. I don't think you two guys are unhappy with a potential 5th place. It's what we're seeing. It's the meltdown. It's the breakdown. It's the lack of leadership, the lack of guidance, and the embarrassment really of us going out in such a banal way and really being humiliated, because it's kind of funny for the other managers. Like, okay, I'll send some quick men up with your wings, and you know, and then we'll flood the box, and if we don't get the goal, we'll get a corner, and we know what you're gonna do on the corner, you know. So
one thing, JORRI, I think that's worth bringing up that I've just thought about is the problem I think Ange is bringing on himself now is he is running out of money in the bank for if he has a bad start next season. Do you know what I mean? Because it won't take long for fans to turn next season if they have the memory of, well, why are we still conceding the same types of goals? You know, why are we still, why, you know, you've been found out, all of that stuff. Whereas, let's say we'd finished 5th and we'd, you know, lost a few of these games 2-1 or drawn 1 and lost 3-2-1 or whatever, it would be different. But because of the way it's happening, I think he's in danger of giving himself less of a chance to get through a difficult patch at the beginning of next season.
Yeah, and to be honest, guys, I can see him going this summer. To be honest, I can see a meltdown scenario happening. Yeah, I can see a like you can, if we keep having these meltdown games the rest of the season, the few games that we got left, and you know, like I would say there's a growing ants out voice right now, and I wouldn't say that normally, but there would be probably the option or the chance of switching in Pochettino this summer, to be honest. I think that's also going to apply the pressure, because Chelsea can't fire him, but Bowley and Levy would probably be happy to do that kind of a deal if Levy, because now I think, to be honest, we're not getting Champions League, and you know what we're seeing is making us all worried, and that's gonna make Levy too worried to go too hard. I hope the recruitment is a little bit independent of that. I hope, because like if Levy is listening, I think you can't really go wrong.
Oh, he's listening, all right.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with Ans as in terms of the recruitment. He's a very good recruiter in my view, and especially if you factor in the character element and stuff like that. I think That's completely right. But you have to work with a squad, and you have to work in the reality that we live in. You're not gonna do the whole minor league kind of thing where you just go in with a blank slate and one formula and you just drive that through. That's not gonna happen. We know
Sure.
that already.
JORRI,
know.
what do you think the answer is then? You've said that, you know, you can see him going at the end of this season. In my personal opinion, I think we need to back into the hills and finally just trust the manager and go with it through the good times and the bad. But you've mentioned a few things there. You've mentioned that we actually do have a good squad, and you mentioned the inability of Ange Postecoglou's tactics. So what is the answer then for you? Do you want to stick with this manager? Do you want to stick by him? And if we do stick by him, what does that look like?
I mean, I would almost throw the question back at you, Ben, because I'm going to say like this. I'm convinced that Ange won't win us anything, not even a cup, unless I see some major innovation from the start of the season next season, which I don't think I will. But let's just say he gets back really to the max and he gets a different squad and is able to innovate because he has the players now, whatever. I don't think that's why it's not happening. I think there's nothing there, to be honest. So I am convinced that Ange is found out. He is out of his league. It's a bridge too far, like he said. But for me, it's kind of like both, like in terms of players, I have a certain kind of a priority system. Number one, it's the fight, it's the mentality, it's the character. That's the number one. Second is IQ. This is how I prioritize it. Number one is you need to be a fighter. Number two, you need to have a bit of a brain. And number three is your skill level. And maybe then 4 and 5 can be physicality and fitness and so on, you know. But and I've said this for a long time, and number one has always been an issue in Tottenham. And even the players that have him, like a Højbjerg and whatever, they see the massive dysfunction in the whole organization and they lose belief.
Right.
And why should they be fighting when nobody else is fighting? When everybody else is taking this corporate, lackadaisical kind of approach to things, you know, and they see their teammates getting away with putting a half a shift in and nobody is being reprimanded for it. Nobody's getting dropped for it and so on, you know. So and in terms of that, that's how I prioritize the players, you know, in terms of the club itself, the managerial and the board side. I would say number one, it's the culture, and number two, it's the recruitment, and then we can start, you know, looking at what systems and so on. But in general, I've always been more of I've always leaned towards more of managers that have many setups and can take advantage of weaknesses that are they're meeting and so on. But of course, for me, front foot football is definitely very important as well, because in Tottenham you won't, which I saw, which we all saw with Mourinho and Conte, we won't get the time or the backing to do anything else if it's not this kind of high octane entertaining football. By the way, for me, both Mourinho and Conte played some of the most entertaining games we've ever seen in the club, to be honest. But of course, it went sour like every time. This is not entertaining for us. It's a high line. I don't think it's very entertaining these last many games, to be honest. You know, and we know it also, guys. Like when Conte, you know, we kept winning with Conte, but we all felt we were all waiting for it to kick in, you know. And we've had the same now with Ange. We've been getting pretty good points, actually not now the latter part of the season, but the statistics are kind of not painting the correct picture, not what we're seeing really and feeling. So to be honest, I don't. By the way, I can see a scenario, Ben, where would be out this summer if it goes really bad these last games. But but I do think it's more likely that he'll be out around September, October as usual, you know.
Yeah,
And
can
that's
I just ask you? Can I just ask you one question? Total hypothetical. But if what you speculated were to happen and Pochettino was able to come in for Postecoglou, do you think Pochettino would get more points for Tottenham next season than Postecoglou would?
Yeah, absolutely. But and to be honest, I mean, I would think Pochettino, looking at all the fights that he's had to have with clubs since he left our club, that he wouldn't come in here and let Levy do it in the same way as he. Like, I think Pochettino would really fight to the death. I'm not trying to get Pochettino in. I want him in, but I would prefer him in after Levy sells the club, if that's ever going to happen. Right. But if he came in, I think yes, we would like. I rate Pochettino. I think he's been in a really difficult clubs and circumstances, you know. So I definitely think, yeah. But I was gonna say also, guys, is like it's like for me, it's not. That's why I can still be hands in a little bit, because there are important things which other managers down the line are going to benefit from, in my view. You know, if we do the normal and bring in Mason, which is, for me, this is why, even if Mason was to turn out to be an amazing coach, I really can't forgive him, because he's there as Levy's assassin. That is his main priority. It's so Levy can pull the trigger at a second's notice, which means that Levy has a setup where he doesn't really need to fully commit. He always has an out, you know, and for me that's kind of unforgivable. And apart from how bad our forward line has been, and that's on Mason, you know, that's his responsibility. That's on Ange and Mason, you know. So if I'm going to start with being Mason out at least now. But if Ange keeps kind of putting it on the players and not mentioning anything about the organization and not taking enough responsibility himself, I am going to have to be Ange out, because I think that's destructive for the club.
But JORRI, how can he mention the organization when he hasn't been here long enough to you know, bestow what they kind of they bring? Because he's actually coming at a time where he's had a good window in the summer. You know, he brought in Maddison, Van de Ven, these kind of players.
Yeah, no, I agree, but it's not all about backing, Ben. It's also about how the daily running of the club and the daily culture of the club, you know. And I think, you know, like
he's here to change that, though. That's what he's here for as well.
Yeah, exactly. But now, when it's going sour, he's only calling out the players. And to be honest, I think
himself.
Yeah, it's like he manned up and said, I have to take. He's not being very specific about it, though. He could be more specific. He could be talking about how gaping wide open his wings are in our last third and so on. You know, he could be talking in tactical terms. You know, he could lay off the growling at the very good questions that only a few journalists are brave enough to ask anymore. You know. And so on, you know. I see a man overcompensating, being over aggressive and over. Maybe it's because he feels like he's entitled to more time and doesn't have to answer for it. But you know,
I think he is too.
He is, but he does have to answer for it. And the best way to answer for it is to do it on the field. And he's confirming every worst theory out there as it is, you know. So
the thing that I would agree with, JORRI, which I think you're alluding to, that is a big worry for me, is to continually concede the same goal time and time again. Doesn't to me reek of, oh, it's all for the long-term project. It's worth going through. What it says is I'm refusing to even tweak in a small way my stubbornness to stop embarrassment from happening. And I think, like I said, we can all handle it if we lose a few games and there's a bad run. But I think when it becomes a bit embarrassing and opposition managers and players are licking their lips at the thought of getting across to the back post where 3 players are lining up to score, or having a corner knowing that we're not going to have a player jumping with you, then that does it. They're the things that I fear make Ange look a little bit small time.
Completely, and this is what's making us, to be honest, guys. I mean, it's hard to take to really, because we've been through so much, and we've actually never looked more Spursy than we do at this moment. You know, we've never looked as much of our own enemy as we do in this moment with Ange. You know, we don't have to we have we have the best defensive squad we've had for years, and we have the worst record by far. You know, I think.
Yeah, but I would say as well that's a big part of what the midfield is showing at the moment, because we've got good midfield players, and they're not performing to the level they were. And also, you want to talk about the goals that we've been conceding over the last couple of weeks, which has been set pieces. Everyone's been going on about set pieces. Well, today we didn't concede a set piece, and actually I thought we looked a lot better from defending set pieces today.
Yeah, because we were man marking today, and we were protecting Vicario and stuff like that.
Isn't that showing Ange making a change then?
I'm not sure that necessarily it's Ange, but sure. But remember what Ange said before that. That's showing a stubborn man that was rude and aggressive towards the journalists that they had asked these questions, eating his own words. That tells me he doesn't know what he's doing. It doesn't tell me, oh, he's progressing. He would have done it a long time ago when it was obvious for me and you to do it. Now it's just like, I'm in trouble. I need to do something, basically. So I'm sorry to say, like Ben, for me, I don't see anything anymore. Like, you know, like I said, if he gets some new players and he starts innovating at the start of the season, I start seeing some new things. Then I might reawaken some hope that we can win something with him. But if this is it, we're not winning anything. And we're
JORRI,
not.
JORRI, let me just leave you on this, because we do have to move on, because we've got a lot of callers. But let me just leave you on this, saying that a lot of Arsenal fans did feel the same way as you feel about Ange, that they feel about Arteta. So maybe there is a bit of value of sticking with the process and seeing where we can go with it.
I agree, Ben, and I actually felt the same way, laughing about Arteta at the same time. But there was a big change. What was the big change, Ben? What happened?
Money.
The young Cronky took over, and they ran the business in a completely different way. Is that going to happen at Tottenham? I don't think so, Ben. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I do think we have been spending a fair amount of money over the last couple of windows. So
it's not about the money, by sure. I agree. It's not because but we also know that Ange is not going to get a £100 million pound player. That's not going to happen.
No. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. No. But JORRI, thanks for coming on today. Great insights as always. Hope to speak to you soon.
Great show, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. I just want to add one thing to it before we speak to Brian quickly. Is they showed on Sky, just while JORRI was on, a stat about the amount of points that all the managers had got with under the same games, and Postecoglou is on 60, Klopp's on 58, and Arteta was on 50.
Well,
so just for a bit of balance, but of course it's very easy to say that's because of the first 10 games and nobody had found him out. So you know, I'm not going against that. I'm just saying, you know, I think on that basis alone, he's worthy of staying the summer. That's for sure.